Most pianists think a song belongs to one key. So classical music trains us to think in this way. So for instance, there's a Mozart sonata in F. Okay, so that's an F. Or the Bach prelude in A. Or a nocturne in E flat or whatever. So we tend to associate songs with keys, and the key is a part of the identity of that piece. But jazz doesn't quite work like that. And this misunderstanding is one of the biggest reasons jazz students stay stuck. So here's something that absolutely blew my mind. I want you to check out these 3 clips of Erroll Garner playing his own composition, Misty. And I want you to find out what's different about each of these 3. I think Erroll is just absolutely magnificent, and I hope that you heard that he played the song in a different key each time. At first I thought, maybe there's something with the audio, maybe it's transposed because the recording is so old. But then I actually looked at the keys and I looked at his fingers just to double check, and you know what? He is playing in 3 different keys. So what's interesting is people who played with Erroll often said that one of the best things about playing with Erroll Garner was they never knew. They never knew what key they would be playing. In fact, first of all, they didn't even know what song Erroll would be playing. So he might start off with a long intro, and then only when the melody starts, then they're like, oh, is that the song we're playing? They had no idea what the key would be. They had no idea what the style would be. So one day a song might be swinging fast, the next day it might be a ballad, the following day it might be a bossa nova. And I think these are really huge lessons that Erroll was trying to teach us. He was trying to teach the whole world back in the day. And it's unfortunate that years and years later, most of us in the jazz world still haven't got the message. So jazz musicians do not simply memorize and play fixed notes. So instead, they understand relationships between the notes. So if you don't understand relationships, you'll always feel you're always going to feel lost, because there'll be a moment where maybe someone calls a different key, especially vocalists, because sometimes their voices are in different ranges. So in this video, I want to show you a few things. So first, why jazz standards are not locked into just one key. I'm also going to show you how great jazz musicians think about harmony, and why melody is connected to function rather than fixed notes. And I'm also going to show you how understanding this completely can actually change how you learn jazz tunes. So we're actually going to take a jazz standard at the end of this, and we're actually going to learn it and take it through several keys so that we see all these principles. So if some of these concepts feel confusing, this is exactly why I created what's known as the Jazz Piano Fundamentals course. So I've designed it to help students to really understand what's actually happening underneath the music. So if a lot of what I'm saying kind of sounds like gibberish, but you're like, I think this guy knows exactly what he's talking about, then the Jazz Fundamentals course is for you. And in case you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do me a favor. I was looking at my analytics. About 75% of people who watch my videos are not subscribed to the channel. So please do me a favor and go ahead and click that subscribe button. And if you want to simply just get started on your jazz journey, please download my free ebook, 10 Steps to Playing Jazz, and I'm going to put a link in the description. Okay, so let's get into this lesson here. So in classical music, right, the written composition is often a sacred document. You know, the exact notes that we play matter. The exact key that we play matters. So if Mozart wrote a sonata in C or in F, well, you play it in that key. You know, if you're playing, well, you've got to play that in C. You've got no business trying this in C sharp. Right? So the reason I'm doing that is because I think like a jazz musician. So we're not fixed to keys. And jazz comes from a completely different tradition. So jazz, when you really analyze it, it's connected to things like playing by ear. So that's been a key thing from the very beginning. It's connected to things like improvisation, things like accompaniment. So often we're accompanying either instrumentalists. These could be horn players, saxophone, trumpet, and sometimes it's singers. And jazz is also all about interaction. So we're often interacting with our fellow musicians, and sometimes we're interacting with ourselves. So when you are improvising or playing a solo, you're actually responding to what you're playing. And jazz is also all about flexibility. So, for instance, if a singer needs the song to be lower because it's really straining their voice, well, it's normal in jazz for the band to just change the key. You know, it's not even a matter of discussion or, ooh, how can we do that? It's kind of expected. We find the key that works for the singer or the instrumentalist. So if a saxophone player maybe prefers another key, you know, if they're playing alto or tenor, in fact, suppose they've been playing, let's say they're a beginner saxophone player, they've been playing this song in a certain key on alto saxophone. If they're now playing it on tenor saxophone, it's going to be a different key for the rest of us. They're still playing the same thing, but for us, by us, I mean pianists and everyone else in the band, it's a different key. So, and likewise, you know, if the pianist just wants a different color, and I think that's what Erroll Garner wanted in those videos. So if he wants a different color, he can just play in a different key. I've heard Keith Jarrett do this a number of times where he's playing a standard and halfway through he just starts playing the thing in a different key, and that's really cool, and that just gives you goosebumps and everything. Okay, so the tune survives because the identity of the tune is not necessarily in these absolute notes that are fixed, and we have to play these. So the identity of our jazz songs is often just in the melody. So there's a certain melodic shape, and then there's also certain harmonic movements, and then the identity of our songs are based on the functions of the chords in that song. So when we're improvising and creating our own melodies, we're often creating them over set chord changes. Okay, so every song has got chords, and each chord has got a function. Okay, so the mistake that jazz pianists often make is we tend to memorize songs as isolated chord names, and part of this problem comes from things like this. So this here is a lead sheet. Okay, so this is just friends. In fact, maybe I'll use this later in this video. Right, so part of our problem comes from things like this. And why I say so is because when I look at the lead sheet, it gives me some fixed chord names, you know, D minor 7 or G7 or C major 7 or whatever. But actually, jazz musicians don't often really ask this question, like, okay, I've seen the chords, but what are these chords doing inside the key? because we've got to know that. Otherwise, that's why people panic when the key changes. You're used to the chord names, but not the actual function. So jazz musicians, it's interesting and ironic. I mean, we use lead sheets. Actually, students often use lead sheets, but jazz musicians don't just see chord names. What they see is function. So for instance, if we're in the key of, let me just use C, because visually it's easy to see and most people understand this key. Right, so if I'm in the key of C, right, a D minor 7 functions as chord 2. A G7 is chord 5, and then a C major 7 is chord 1. So that's important to really understand, because when you understand that, you can now move this chord progression anywhere else. So for instance, in the key of F, I know that G minor 7 to C7 to F major 7, that's a 2-5-1. You know, if I'm in the key of, let's say, B flat, I know that my 2 is C minor 7 to F7 to B flat major 7. Okay, so it's exactly the same relationship between the chords, but I'm just in a different location each time. And this is exactly how jazz musicians think. So we are going to take a song like All the Things You Are, and when you look at this song, right, so I'm going to play it in A flat, in the key of A flat. And when I play it, the first chord, lead sheet and chord charts might say, okay, that's an F minor 7, but actually, if we want to go deeper, that chord is chord 6. Okay, so instead of thinking F minor 7, I'm thinking 6 to chord 2, then 5, and then chord 1. So when I play, this is chord 6, then chord 2, then 5, then 1, and then actually chord 4. Okay, so when I play a song like this, I don't know how many people would know that actually this is the same thing, not just the same thing, but the exact same thing that we play when we're playing a song like Fly Me to the Moon. So it's 6, right? And then a 2-5-1. And then chord 4 actually, so it's exactly the same thing. So I'm playing exactly the same chord progression. I'm playing chord 6, I'm playing chord 2, I'm playing 5, and then I'm playing 1. Okay, so sometimes the big mistake is people won't see this, because when they learned maybe Fly Me to the Moon, they learned it not as 6-2-5-1-4, they learned it as A minor 7, and then D minor 7, and then G7, and then C major 7, and then F major 7, you know. So that's okay, but that's not really telling you the full story. We should be able to say, hang on, that's all the things you are. It's exactly the same thing. Yeah? 6 to 2, then 5, and then 1, and then 4. And then the cool thing, so as I'm playing this, I can't help it, but I'm hearing a few other songs that are probably not even jazz songs, but I mean, you can play these exact same chords and you'll find, okay, I Will Survive. If you know the song called I'll Survive, I'll just play the rhythm. I want to see if you can, in fact, I'll play the chords. I want to see if you can sing the song. So, da, 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 da. I forget the words. First I was afraid, or something like that. So 6, right? And then 2, then 5, and then 4. Exactly the same chords. 2, 5, 1, and then 4. No difference. It's the same chord progression. So all the things you are: Fly Me to the Moon, I Will Survive, even Killing Me Softly. and then 5 goes to 1, you know, and then 4. Okay, in fact, I don't know if it goes to 4, but it's definitely something like that. So it's the exact same chord progression for these songs. In fact, even another jazz standard like Autumn Leaves, you realize that it's exactly the same thing. We just ignore the 6th chord at the beginning. So we can just play 2, 5, and then 1, and then 4. So, ba-da-da, no chord 6, the falling leaves, da-da-da-dee. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm seeing the relationships between the chords. I'm thinking of the functions of the chords in the song. And although I'm doing this in the key of C, I can play pretty much all those songs. If I understand function, I could do this, let's say F sharp, right? So if I go, fly me to the moon and let me, there's chord 5 and there's chord 1 and then there's chord 4. The falling leaves drift by my window. It's the same thing, you know. What was the other one? Da 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 da. Same thing. Okay, so when you start seeing music like this, you start thinking like a real jazz musician. And inside my Jazz Piano Fundamentals course, we analyze all our songs like this. We analyze them by harmony, not by key, and not by chord names, definitely. And that's really how you want to be thinking in order to start speaking, but not just to start speaking, but to start becoming fluent at the language of jazz. So if you're playing, let's say, Fly Me to the Moon, and then the key is too high or too low for the vocalist, you simply play your exact same chord progression in the lower key, just like what I was doing here. And then here's another thing. So we've spoken about chords, and that's all good, but do you know that even melody is also all about relationships between the notes? I'm going to explain that. So, and I'm sure this is going to be quite a breakthrough for some people, because the melody is not just in that key, you know. So a lot of my students, especially when they start learning with me from the beginning, I ask them, okay, what key is that song? And often they'll have no idea. Okay, I might even ask, what note does the melody start on? And usually it's answers like, it starts on a G, or it starts on a B flat. You know, that G one I know from Autumn Leaves, because when they're thinking of Autumn Leaves, they're thinking of it in the key of G minor or B flat. Okay, but jazz musicians, on the other hand, they're thinking, well, this melody starts on the 5th degree of the scale, or it starts on the 3rd degree, and to me that makes perfect sense. So I'll give you an example. So if I take Autumn Leaves, right? We've just said if it's in the key of B flat, the relative of B flat is G minor. So G minor, B flat, it's really one of those potato issues, right? Which we could argue about all day. Right? I'm just going to say it's in the key of B flat for now, right? So if I start on the 6th degree of my scale, then I'm sorted. What's actually happening is I start on the 6th degree, and then I just go up the scale step by step. Once I've played those 3 notes, I'll play the interval of a perfect 4th. And why does it help to think like that? Because I can take any other key. Let me take the key of E, for instance. If I know my E major scale, I have to simply go to the 6th degree of my scale and play the 3 notes of the scale, and then the interval of a perfect 4th. Okay, so I'm understanding not just the melody notes, but actually where the melody sits inside the harmony. I'm also thinking about, okay, what scale tones are those? What chord tones are those? Which notes are creating tension? which ones resolve, and then I can really just easily move the melody into another key. And suddenly this thing called transposing, it doesn't become as terrifying as it once was. So yes, of course, occasionally we'll play some wrong notes, when we're trying to figure out the melody, but that's expected. You'll be playing more correct notes than wrong notes, so that's absolutely fine. So I want to show you how this whole concept works. So we're actually going to analyze and learn this song, Just Friends, and we should be able to transpose this very easily if we follow these principles. So I'm going to give you a series of steps. So the first step, right, is I want you to know what key the song is in. And I know it sounds a bit of a contradiction because I've just been telling you this entire video that a song is not in a key, but just bear with me for a second and it will all become obvious just now. When I look at the lead sheet, right, this particular version, this one option is written in a particular key. So this Just Friends is written in the key of G. I can see the key signature there says 1 sharp, so that's the key of G. And then my first chord, okay, so that's step number 1, right? The second step is now I'm going to look at the chords and ask myself the question, well, in the key of G, well, what function does that chord actually serve? So I'm going to play the opening of Just Friends. It starts with a C major 7. Okay. All right, so this is C major 7. By the way, I'm voicing my C major 7. And for things like voicings, my Jazz Piano Lab is the thing that covers these sorts of things. We won't have time to analyze and for me to describe everything I'm doing here, but you can check that out. I'll put a link in the description as well for this. So this is a C major 7, right? So the song, well, question is, what's the function of C in the key of G? If I know my G major scale, I know that C is the 4th. So my song is actually starting on chord 4. Okay, so that's important. The first chord is not just C major 7, it's chord 4. And then I play, although lead sheet says it's a C minor 7, I'm just thinking it's a minor 4 chord. So I started on 4, and then that 4 became minor, right? And then from that minor 4 I went to F7, but the function of F7 in the key of G is actually the flat 7. So F is the flat 7 of G. So my chord progression is really chord 4 to a minor 4 to a flat 7, then chord 1. What's happening over here is I'm going to play a 2-5 progression, but in the key that's just a half step above. So if I'm in the key of G, right, the key that's half a step above is A flat. So I'm playing the 2-5 of A flat, which is B flat minor 7 to E flat 7. That's a 2-5, a half step above my key. So what am I doing? I'm going to summarize what I've done. I've said chord 4, that 4 becomes minor, then we go to flat 7, back to 1. After 1, we're thinking of the key that's a half step above. We're going to play its 2-5. Once we've played that 2-5, we come back to our original key and we play a 2-5-1. Actually just a 2-5, not 2-5-1. So just 2-5. And maybe I'll stop there for now with this song. So let me put all this together. As I'm playing, I'm going to be saying the functions of the chord, and that's something that I'm going to encourage you. It's one of those breakthrough moments. As soon as you can play a song and say its functions, you are well way on your way to really understanding the language of jazz and thinking like a real jazz musician. So here I go. Chord 4, minor 4 is coming, there's minor 4, and there's flat 7. Back to chord 1. Now I'm going up a half step and playing a 2-5. Back to my original key, I'm going to play a 2-5. Okay. Let me see if I can take this information, these functions, to a different key. I'm going to just pick at random. I'm going to go key of B. Okay, so I'm going to go to a key that's probably a little bit further away from G. So, obviously you've got to know, you must know your scales. Okay, and then you've got to know the chords in the key and so forth, and then things will start making sense. So, in the key of B, there's chord 4, right? And then we say that chord 4 becomes minor, right? And then we go to a flat 7, and then back to chord 1. There's chord 1. I'm going to go to a key that's a half step above, and the key half a step above B is C. I'm going to play the 2-5 of C. Back to key of my original key, B, and I'm going to play a 2-5 on. Okay, so I'll do that one more time. Key of B, chord 4, right? There is my flat 7, back to 1. I've gone up half a step and I'm playing a 2-5, and then back to my original key with a 2-5. Okay, one more key. Let me do this in the key of A flat. Again, I've got to know my scale. I know the song starts on chord 4, right? A minor 4 to a flat 7, back to 1, and then I'm going up a half step and play a 2-5, back to my original key and play a 2-5, a 3 and a 6, and so forth. So now let's look at the melody, and we're going to analyze the melody notes. So the melody doesn't start on B like we always say. The melody starts on the 3rd degree of the scale. So it goes, I'm in the key of G right now, so B is the 3rd of G. So in other words, if I was in the key of C and I'm playing this song, well, my melody has to start on E, because E is the 3rd degree of C. Okay, so back to the key of G. So I'm starting on the 3rd degree of my scale, and I'm repeating that note. And then I go down a step, up a step, down a step. Okay, so that's important information right there. Is that I'm playing the 3rd degree of the scale. I go down, up, down. From here, I'm going to play, remember, in terms of the harmony, we were going to the minor 4. So I'm going to play the 3rd of that minor 4. Okay, which is my minor 4, if I'm in the key of G, is C minor, right? So I have to think of the 3rd of C minor. Okay, so I can think like that, or I can simply say, you know what, if I'm just thinking key, just purely the key of G, I am going to go to my flat 6. So I can go 3rd degree, and then that note right there is the flat 6. Okay, so what this means for me is if I'm to take this song to a different key, let's say key of D, right? That means I have to start on the 3rd degree of D. Again, you've got to know your scales. I've lost count. How many scales have I played in this video? Many. So you've got to know them. So you play the 3rd degree of the scale, you go down, up, down, to the flat 6. So my song would be, the next note, actually, I didn't mention this, but you'd just continue the same exercise. So 3rd degree, I'm in the key of G, by the way, right? I go to the 2nd degree of the scale. I do that same pattern where I go down, up, down, and then to the flat 5 this time. Okay, so thinking about your melody like this will enable you to transpose it easily. So we've learned how to transpose the chords because we're thinking of their function in the key, and now we've learned how to transpose the melody by simply thinking about what degree of the scale do we start, and then what is the shape? By shape, I just mean in which direction do the notes go? Are we going up? Are we leaping? Are we stepping? And all that sort of stuff. So those are the two ingredients that really make up songs. So why does all this actually matter so much? So I believe that it really, really matters because if all you'd ever do is just memorize songs, at some point in your playing or on your journey, you're going to hit a wall. And you're not going to be comfortable improvising over the chord changes if you're just learning the songs and thinking about the letter names, C minor 7 and so forth. At some point, yeah, you will make some progress, but at some point you will hit a brick wall. So you won't really be comfortable with improvising, and you're probably going to be thinking of every song as completely new material. When, just like we analyzed, a lot of songs have got similar ingredients. We saw how All the Things You Are and Fly Me to the Moon is basically the same song, but if you're not thinking this way, you're thinking of these as two different songs, because the lead, she's told you, or it's taught you the song in two different keys. It's actually the same thing. And the other thing is, this is very important, you actually won't be able to transfer language that you've learned from one song to another because you're not seeing the connections. Okay, but when you understand things like harmonic function, when you understand your scales and the scale degrees and the intervals, then you're going to become flexible. Okay, because you can easily take songs, put them in a different key, or you can take ideas that you learned when you were transcribing that piece, you can play them elsewhere. In fact, you can actually just make these things a part of your playing because you know exactly the context in which to use these things. You're going to become so flexible that singers are going to be begging you to accompany them, because not many people can do this. So you're going to have a very special skill. You'll know how to accompany because you know hundreds of songs. You know, when you know hundreds of songs, it's not because your memory is phenomenal. It's really because you can just see the patterns between the songs, and you can see, okay, that song is like this song, or I'm just playing this chord progression. You know, and in terms of harmonic formula, there are not that many in jazz. You'll see these things from song to song. It's the same ingredients. So flexibility is one of those defining characteristics of jazz musicians. So you want to make sure that you possess that. So in my Jazz Piano Fundamentals course, I don't just teach people how to memorize chords or how to play melodies. I don't teach how to play from the lead sheet. This is actually something that after going through the course, you'll be like, it's so easy. Okay, you can actually start using that as a tool rather than as the thing that you depend on. So we actually learn how harmony is constructed. We learn how chords function inside a key. We learn how to recognize patterns and how to really, really understand tunes. Because once you understand the system, then you're free. You know, like Erroll Garner, you can play whatever style, whatever key, whatever ideas, because you understand exactly where you are and what you're doing in the context of that song. So if you already know your fundamentals, because you could be like, oh, I know these things. I know my chords and the keys. I know I can play in all 12 keys. If you're that sort of person, you've done your fundamentals, but you want something deeper, then I would recommend that you check out my Jazz Piano Lab, and I am going to put the link to all these courses in the description so that you can find what really works for you. So I'm wishing you all the best on your journey, and I'm hoping that you don't just listen to these videos, but actually go to your instrument, implement these things, try and figure out the functions of the chords, try and figure out what degree of the scale your melody is starting on, and then see if you can now start playing songs from memory. Actually, a good activity to try is to just take a song and see if you can play it through multiple keys. I was doing this with My Foolish Heart earlier today, so it almost blew my mind. I was like, oh, okay. But I saw the song in a way that I've never seen before, so it's really, really useful once you start to implement this. And again, just a reminder, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. That's just going to help the channel to grow and will reach more people. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.